the last Monday of the month of November. So I hope that you woke up well and of course you're in high spirits and ready to face the day and the week. Welcome to the show. This is AM Live. My name is Winnie Lubembe, for sitting in or starting in for Zainab Ismail, who is on a very much deserved leave. And of course, we have a lot to cover today. Has been such an eventful weekend. And of course, we'll be doing the weekend review, see what has been happening over the weekend and what to look forward to, especially when it comes to the new week. And speaking of the new week, the exams are actually beginning today. And of course, we have the KCPE as well as the KSPEA. All right, we'll be talking about that even as we continue with the show. We have our reporters on standby. We have our very own Rukia Buli as well as Kevin Mutai will be giving us lives. And of course, they'll be joining us live rather to give us, you know, just a sneak peek of what is happening as far as the preparations for the exams. And of course, not forgetting that is one Azimio and One Kenya Alliance, that is coalition leader Raila Odinga as well, talked about a mass demonstration, which we'll be looking at that in a moment. But first things first, let's begin with the stories that we have so far. And Azimio One Kenya leader Raila Odinga has threatened to hold a series of demonstrations across the country to protest the ouster of the 4 dissenting IEBC commissioners. Remarks that have been met with disdain from Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who has challenged Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka to place their children at the front line of the demonstrations. The commissioners, Justice Nyangaya, Irene Masit, Francis Wanderi, and IEBC Vice Chair Juliana Cherera are this week expected to face the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament over their conduct during the general elections. Sydney Chazima has more.
Is mounting over the impending ouster of the 4 dissenting IEBC commissioners, alias the Cherera 4. Azimio One Kenya's Raila Odinga has now threatened mass action should the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament prescribe their removal.
We'll have a meeting with the people of Nairobi at Kamkunji grounds to ask them if they accept that these commissioners should go home.
The commissioners, Justice Nyangaya, Irene Masit, Francis Wanderi, and Vice Chair Juliana Cherera, are expected before the committee to explain their conduct during the announcement of the final results of the presidential election. But in this process, Raila alleges a sinister plot.
An independent electoral commission is the referee. It cannot be appointed by a player. So we will not allow the Kenya Kwisha regime to impose a commission on the people of Kenya.
But Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who of late has not shied away from verbal attacks on Raila, had a rejoinder.
The same people are asking the people of Kenya to go back to the streets because Parliament is doing its work and is an independent institution. The people of Kenyans are telling them if they want the people of Kenya to go to the streets, they must lead by example.
Rigathi now wants to see Winnie Odinga and Kennedy Kalonzo on the front line of the demonstrations.
If you want street protests, it is okay. But for them to take place, let your daughter come from Arusha, let your son come from Arusha, and physically lead the demonstrations, and the rest of Kenyans can follow.
Raila promises that the whole country will rally behind his cause.
We will then do the same thing in Mombasa. We'll do the same thing in Nakuru. We'll do the same thing in Kisumu. Do the same thing in Kakamega.
With the country and political class now awaiting Raila's next course of action, it will be interesting to see whether the 4 dissenting commissioners will appear before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee on Monday and Tuesday after Raila urged them to boycott the summons. Sydney Chazima, NTV.
All right, and of course, that will be forming the basis of our conversation this morning. But aside from that, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has dismissed allegations of tension between him and President William Ruto. Gachagua instead has blamed the media for planning to discredit the William Ruto administration and set it against the people. NTV's senior political affairs reporter, Kennedy Mureithi, with more.
Straight from a week-long trip abroad, President William Ruto joined faithful at Sitam Karen Church for the church's 25th anniversary celebrations. The duo dismissed claims of tension between them as reported in the Sunday Nation.
For the avoidance of doubt, the Ruto administration is solid, it is focused on service delivery, and will not be distracted by propaganda, by innuendos, and things that do not make sense before the people of this country.
My deputy has said there is a bit of noise, but you know, everybody is doing their job.
The current state of affairs is being attributed to a simmering tussle based on the appointment of principal secretaries.
Never mind Sambalat, never mind Tobias. Let us focus, and we will build the walls of our nation.
Gachagua has accused the media of making up the story in a bid to discredit the administration.
And the people who are trying to stop him have not given up. They have regrouped. They have engaged the media. You know, the media, when we were pursuing leadership, was mobilized against the president and all of us.
According to the DP, media has never been on their side.
These people, where you are away, crafted a narrative that now that you are succeeding and the world has accepted you and accepted your leadership, and they are responding to your various engagements, that William Ruto is a puppet of the West. Your Excellency, where you are away, before you left, you instructed our Cabinet Secretary for Interior and your security chiefs to do whatever it takes to restore security across the country. And our hard-working CS and the security chiefs came up with a good strategy on how to create convergence between officers of the National Government Administration and the police to achieve total security. Again, our detractors using the press put a screaming headline, Moi era chiefs are back.
Rigathi has also been galvanizing his Mount Kenya base as he sets himself up as the senior-most politician from the region. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV.
Well, thanks, Kennedy. And Kenya is set to make history today when the National Primary Education Examinations start. This time round, things will be different as two sets of candidates are set to sit for two different exams. The Kenya Certificate of Primary Education, also known as KCPE, and the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, or KPSEA. While the national exams kick off at a time when different parts of the country are facing drought, a situation that may affect the millions of candidates nationwide. Nina Shaban expounds.
The first time in Kenyan history, there'll be two sets of candidates. Those sitting for the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education, also known as KCPE, and those sitting for the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment that is set to take over the KCPE in the new competency-based curriculum.
On Monday morning, more than 2.5 million candidates shall be sitting for their national examinations, with 1,244,188 Class 8 learners writing their Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examinations, while 1,287,597 Grade 6 students will for the first time be sitting for the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment examinations. Preparations are underway countrywide, with concern being raised about the double candidacy.
Sahi kuna conjunction ya junior na class 8 kwenda form 1. Je, nauliza form 1 class 8 ataenda hii lijengo alilolijenga la junior, akiingia form 2 huyu junior ataenda wapi?
Nevertheless, students and teachers in Webuye SCK Primary School, Bungoma County, remain optimistic about kicking off tomorrow, comfortable with their preparation.
Tutakumbana na changamoto lolote, tumesubiri tu kesho ifike, alafu watoto wakalie mtihani.
We are very prepared and we are very ready. We are just waiting for the KCPE tomorrow. And to our parents, we would like to say that we are going to produce more than 3,400.
In both Kiambu and Kilifi counties, the main concern is the candidates being able to access meals during this crucial time, with most parts of the country suffering from drought. Ruiru Member of Parliament Simon Kingara handed over a 2 million shilling cheque to ensure all 7,200 candidates in the public primary schools in the area are provided with meals as they sit for their papers, while his Rabai counterpart, Kenga Mupe, promised to cater for all the meals of 3,551 candidates in his constituency.
Wanafunzi wetu watakuwa wakifanya mtihani, watapata chakula ya bure kutoka kwa sisi ndio waweze kuweka mafikra yao kwa masomo na kufanya mtihani.
Lenu tu ni kuhakikisha kwamba watoto mnaangalia vizuri, mnashirikiana na walimu ili tuweze kupata matokeo mazuri.
The Kenya Certificate of Primary Examinations comprise of mathematics, English, science, Kiswahili, social studies and religious education, whereas the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment comprise of English, integrated science, Kiswahili, creative arts and social studies. Nina Shaban, NTV.
All right, and of course, like we said, we have our reporters Kevin Mutai as well as Rukia Mule on ground. And of course, they'll be joining us shortly. But for now, we understand that Education CS Ezekiel Machogu is already in Mombasa. There are the live pictures of his motorcade as well. Just a few moments from now, he will be, flagging off the containers as well as we hopefully will hear him actually address the nation as far as the examinations. Of course, security has been beefed up. And of course, Kevin Mutai will be giving us more updates as far as what exactly, the CS will be letting us know. But remember, again, this year we're seeing both KCPE and for the first time, grade 6 candidates who, again, will be sitting for their exams starting today. And the highest number stands at 3.4 million candidates who will be examined this year. And of course, 1.2 million candidates registered for the KPSEA examinations, as well as 1.24 as well for KCPE, and 884,000 for KCSE. And of course, KCSE again will begin immediately after both grade 6 and class 8. Pupils are done with their examinations, all right? And of course, like we said, we'll be having live updates and of course live feeds as well. There, what you've seen was Education CS Ezekiel Machogu's motorcade already on the ground, and we'll going back to Mombasa very, very shortly. But for now, the Eastleigh business community has anchored their support for Ahmed Rashid, an officer from Pangani Police Station who is set to face murder charges. A section of residents from the area have castigated the government for charging Rashid, as they argue that he cleared robbers off the streets of Eastleigh. However, others have supported the Director of Public Prosecution's move, terming Rashid's acts as extrajudicial killings. Gina Kirori reports.
It is likely a video that is ingrained in the minds of many Kenyans. This officer dressed in plain clothes caught on camera executing 2 suspects on the busy streets of Eastleigh First Avenue, much to the horror of bystanders. The officer in the video was later identified as Ahmed Rashid, a special branch officer attached at Pangani Police Station, or if you like, the head of the Pangani 6, a feared squad of officers within the area known for executing first and asking questions later. It is an issue that has raised debate amongst Kenyans, with some praising him for keeping the streets safe by executing suspects, while others lamented over the extrajudicial killings, presenting an opportunity for trigger-happy officers to execute innocent people. On Thursday, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nurdin Haji, approved murder charges against Rashid for the daylight execution of the 2 suspects, much to the anger of representatives of the Eastleigh business community.
Watu ya Eastleigh hasa kama Kunji tunasimama na Ahmed Rashid kwa hali na mali. Tutatetea yeye, tutamwambia ile kazi amefanya.
Misi yote imedunga kizu watu, naichukua simu, natoa mapesa, sasa ni salama. Yote Eastleigh masema ameenda kesho usubuhi mahakamani.
Lakini sasa hii tunaweza bita kila mahali, tunaweza tumia simu yetu kwa barabara, na kitambo tulikuwa hatumii kwa simu. Sasa hivi leo ilikuwa merasti, sisi tumeshangaa.
However, some residents of Eastleigh have supported the DPP's move.
Rashid, tunasema huyo mzee
acha atulie huko juu venye alikuwa amefanya vijana wetu kwa kinyume cha sheria kulingana na saa hii venye iko. Unastahili kufuatilia mtu unajue kama mnumizi ama si mwizi.
Wakientertain kumwekea mashtaka na kumshika watafungua hiyo story tena ya crime tena, watu watachukulia hiyo advantage.
Rashid is set to take plea on December 8th, 2022. Ngina Kirari, NTV.
And to some bit of sporting action, and Deogratius Ojok scored a hat-trick for Tusker FC as they condemned Nairobi City Stars to their second consecutive loss of the season, in as many beating them 4-1 at Ruaraka ground. City Stars were, however, the first to open the scores with only 3 minutes gone when Samuel Kapen rose the highest to direct the ball past Patrick Matasi. However, Tusker responded 4 minutes later through Ojok when he tapped into even the scores 6 minutes before halftime. Ojok was at it again in similar fashion to give the Brewers the lead. Ojok then secured his hat-trick thanks to Eric Zakayo's cross in the 59th minute. Jackson Macharia piled more misery on City Stars in the dying embers of the game to make it 4-1. In the other games, Kariobangi Sharks got their first win of the season by beating Ulinzi Stars 3-2, with visitors Kakamega Homeboys also clinching their first win of the season thanks to Levis Okello's goal against KCB.
By Kwanza for first minute, but to come up strong second half, to recover immediately. But though referee kidogo tukosea sana, tulima penalty, tulima bao, ilikuwa frustrate, but all in all, tulikuwa very calm and determined to win the game.
Pongeza Tusker kwa mechi ambayo wamekuwa nayo. I think walikuwa very attacking. Tulianza hii game vizuri, lakini mid first half tukapotea kidogo. Nadhani inatuambia tena lazima tu work. I think defensively tulikuwa very poor, na ni area pia lazima tu work. Alafu pia hatukuweza ku create many opportunities. I think tuko na kazi ya kufanya na tutafanya to make sure that our next match tutakuwa tayari.
All right, let's go back to Mombasa, where Education CS Ezekiel Machogu is already on ground. Let's listen in.
Tunaanza mitihani kwa watoto wetu ya Allah wa primary school, wa secondary school wanaendelea. Ya Allah, wajalie watoto wetu wewe ni wenye kufaulu katika mitihani yao. Ya Allah, tujalie na sisi tunaosimamia mitihani. Mwenyezi Mungu utupe afya, Mwenyezi Mungu utupe busara, Mwenyezi Mungu utupe hekima, utupe na uadilifu ya Allah, tuweze kuisimamia mitihani hii vile inavyohitajika. Ya Allah, ibariki nchi yetu. Ya Allah, wabariki viongozi wetu, waziri wetu ambaye anaanza kazi yake rasmi ya mitihani mjini Mombasa. Kwa neema zake Mwenyezi Mungu ya Allah, bariki waziri wetu, wabariki na viongozi wetu wakuu wa elimu, viongozi wa nchi na viongozi wa tabaka mbalimbali. Tubariki na sisi ya Allah, tupe afya, tupe neema, tupe siha, tupe ujuzi wako, tupe baraka zako. Tunaomba yote ya Allah kwa majina yako 99. Amin. Amin.
So thank you so much. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the County Commissioner to address us.
Thank you for head teachers, security personnel. Good morning. Good morning. Sir, I will take my time because of the names, but today, before you, the head teachers from primary schools, the security personnel, and the education staff who are ready to teach this. We are set for exams, and God willing, to will be successful. My name is Jonathan, the County Commissioner. Let me welcome the RBE, share what, then invite them. Thank you so much. Commissioner, we hope that we produce credible.
Waziri wenzangu katika utumishi wa umma na kwa mtihani huu, hamjambo. Tumsalimie waziri kwa mkono. Asante sana waziri kwa kuja katika shughuli hii. Tunashukuru kwamba umechagua kuja katika eneo la Pwani. Sehemu hii ina changamoto zake, lakini tuko tayari. Tunataka kuhakikishia kwamba kama mwaka jana tulikuwa hatuna tatizo lolote, hata mwaka huu hatutarajii tatizo lolote kutoka kwa mtihani huu, kwa sababu hawa walimu wamezoea, askari wetu wamezoea kuchunga mtihani, na nafikiri wanafunzi pia wametayarishwa kutosha kuhakikisha kwamba wanafanya mtihani wao bila kuiba, bila kufanya masihara. Kwa hayo ningependa kukualika uweze kuzungumza nasi na ujisikie uko nyumbani. Karibu sana.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Regional Commissioner, County Commissioner, the Regional Director of Education who is here, all the center managers and our security personnel. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm happy to be back here. 20 years ago, I was also serving here as a District Commissioner then in Mombasa County. I said the place where I should be able to come to start of the exam is here, county number 1 out of our 47 counties in the country. Today, we are having 493 distribution and storage centers, and the exams are being dispatched from those 493 distribution centers countrywide. I want to assure Kenyans that in each and every distribution center, our center managers have already arrived, and actually in some the papers have been given out to be able to move to the respective schools. All arrangements are in place. The personnel are in place, and also the security personnel are in place, whereas the vehicles, even there are certain areas where we have an arrangement of helicopters to make sure that the exams get to the respective schools in good time. We have everything in place, and we are assuring the Kenyans that we are going to present a credible exam where integrity will not be compromised. Today, KCPE and Kipusea, we are going to have mathematics paper in the morning, and also they will do English paper plus composition in the afternoon. So we wish our candidates all the best in this particular exam, and of course it's 3 days, and Form 4 will be able to continue until the 23rd of this month. For Form 4, today, the only paper that we have that is going to be done is home science. So we wish you well, our candidates, and tackle your papers with all the confidence and the faith that you are going to pass well in your exams. Thank you. We have been able to put the necessary measures in place, and I assure you that there will be no cheating, because this particular time we have personal accountability at the individual level, from the center manager to the security personnel, the supervisors and the invigilators. So we will make sure that there is no cheating of any kind in any of our schools.
Well, that was the Education Cabinet Secretary, Mr. Machogu, just assuring members of the public that all is set and systems are ready to go for the examination. It's really raining heavily, and the minister is now heading to open the examination container. Perhaps let's just try and adjust ourselves so that we can at least give you those pictures, live pictures. It's raining heavily. Let's let's just try and see if we can get closer here with my colleague Karim Rajan. Just trying to have our equipment set and ready to have that coverage live. There are over 1 million students expected to sit for their national examinations here in the Coast region, and security has been provided, and of course with other mechanisms put in place to ensure that the examination materials gets to some of the far-flunked schools within the region. There are areas that are currently inaccessible due to the what has been happening in terms of the rainy season, and the minister saying there that they have deployed necessary equipment, including the choppers, to airlift these materials to ensure that all the students from across the country get to sit for the national examination. Remember, it's just the KCPE and grade 6 under the KPSEA. Those are the students who will be sitting the examination, starting with mathematics and of course also English and composition later in the afternoon. It's a 3-day exercise that is expected to conclude on Wednesday, and of course it's definitely what I can see right here is that the security personnel are already on the ground, and I understand that at least 2 or 3 officers will be deployed at every school in the region to assure the candidates their safety during the examination period. Let me see if we can just get closer so that you can witness what is happening inside that container. That is where the examinations papers have been kept, and the minister together with other education officials are in there. There's also the Mombasa County Commissioner and other education officials and security stakeholders who are part and parcel of this exercise. The teachers, of course, are shielding themselves from the rain. It's really pounding heavily here in Mombasa. And of course also it's a situation that perhaps is happening across the region. And of course also remember that it's the beginning of the exams, and probably parents, teachers are wondering how this is gonna go down, especially in those areas that the minister mentioned, the far-flunked areas where there's poor infrastructure, that's road infrastructure, where there's flooding, and of course also areas that are far-flunked, especially within Tana River, let's say Lamu. There's necessary equipment in place to ensure that those pupils there get to sit for their national examination. There are over 3 million, I believe, over 3 million pupils who will be sitting the exam starting from today, and as I mentioned earlier, expected 1 million here in the Coast region. And of course, we'll just be traversing and going around the schools to see what will be happening. I'm pretty sure that once this exercise is done here, opening of the container, then the minister will be gracing the first, going to the first school and just address the pupils there, wishing them the best of luck as they begin their assessment today. Remember, he's also issued a warning to those who are planning to cheat in this exercise, saying that the exams this year is leak-proof, and of course also saying that those who will be found culpable of engaging in any irregularities during this process will be taken to account. This is something that perhaps is the first time for the minister to handle since he was sworn into office as the cabinet secretary, succeeding Professor George Magoha, saying that it's all systems go, and he's put in place all the necessary measures to ensure that this is a success. He says that he decided to come back to the Coast region to conduct this first official national duty because he once served in the region. That's why he felt it's necessary for him to come down here and talk to the teachers and open the examination container. Right there, the teachers, the school heads are being called to just pick their exam materials, and I don't know if we can really get closer to from where we're standing. I think it's kind of next to impossible there because it's really crowded there. journalists are there, education officials are there. Everybody's trying to get closer to see how this exercise is being carried out from inside the container. But I think we'll just try and give our best shot to see if we can give you that. Let me just ask my colleague Karim Rajan, just moving a little bit closer. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Karim. Well, right there, the minister is out. He's walking out from the container. Waziri, how is inside there?
No, everything is okay. We have given the papers, they are intact. The first opening is going to be done at the school level.
So you're heading to the school. Which school is that?
Yes, we are heading to the school. Several schools around here. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Waziri. Well, as you heard it right there, the minister is just stepping out of the this particular center to visit one of the schools whereby he will be gracing the first exercise, opening the examination from the school, and of course also wishing the candidates success as they embark on this assessment period. So we'll be accompanying the minister, and we'll be giving you more updates as soon as we get from him, especially regarding this exercise that is going down here in Mombasa, and of course also the entire country, saying that there are over 498 stations that are currently undertaking this exercise. So we'll be back with more from Mombasa. My name is Kevin Mutai, and I'm here with my colleague Karim Rajan.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin Mutai, as well as Karim, holding fort for us. Quite a rainy morning in Mombasa, but thank you very much, Kevin, as well, for holding fort and just making sure that Karim's camera is also, you know, under the shield of an umbrella, despite the rains this morning. And of course, we'll be following up with Kevin as well as Karim in our subsequent shows and bulletins as well throughout the day, just to get to see how, you know, day one is like as far as the examinations are concerned. And of course, not forgetting that we'll also be joining our very own Rukia Bule, who will be at Olympic Primary School as well, just to give us a feel of what you know, the day is like as far as the first day of KCPE and KPSEA examinations. All right, and of course that will be coming during the conversation during the show. But elsewhere, former Marakwet West Member of Parliament William Kisang has bagged the United Democratic Alliance UDA ticket for the upcoming Elgeyo Marakwet senatorial by-election. The seat fell vacant following President William Ruto's move to name Kipchumba Murkomen into his cabinet. In the county of Murang'a, Shege Njuguna will fly the UDA flag in the Kandara mini poll. NTV's Lois Wangoi reports.
Wagombea 21 walimezea mate tiketi ya chama cha UDA katika kinyang'anyiro cha kiti cha useneta. A whopping 21 aspirants had eyed the United Democratic Alliance UDA ticket for the Elgeyo Marakwet senatorial by-election. Former Marakwet West MP William Kisang floored 20 aspirants after gathering 28,136 votes.
21 of us showed interest to serve the county of Elgeyo Marakwet County as the senator.
Tied at second place were Timothy Kipchumba and Jonathan Tanui, each gathering 26,766 votes.
We had promised from the party that the list of presiding officers as well as clerks would be shared in advance. That was not done.
A number of the losing candidates now claim the contest was not free and fair.
Before general elections, we saw askaris manning the polling stations, even if it was NYS. We saw enough ballot papers that time, but yesterday was very embarrassing.
We were conducting nominations for interested aspirants to see who would garner sufficient support or the highest support from the registered voters.
Kandara, Muranga County, Shege Njuguna is trying his luck for the second time after coming second to now Water Cabinet Secretary Alice Wahome in the August polls.
Wanasiasa wote wa UDA hapa Kandara wakuje tuongee na Wanjiko wa Kandara.
Njuguna garnered 708,026 votes to beat his closest challenger Titus Njau, who got 5,335 votes. Meanwhile, the race to succeed Defense Cabinet Secretary Aidan Duale as Garissa Town MP continues to hot up, with rivalries between the two major clans taking center stage. Lois Wangoi, NTV.
All right, thanks very much, Lois Wangoi. And of course, again, we'll be doing the newspaper review in just a moment, because like we said, it has been quite an eventful weekend and of course even the week. And my guests are already here in studio. So we have Hesbon Owila, who's a media and political communications expert. How are you doing this morning, Mr. Hesbon? You well?
I'm good, and you?
Good, good. Thank you very much for making time for us this Monday morning. And of course, we'll also have Suleiman Bashir, who's a lawyer and political analyst as well. So good to see you this morning. How are you doing? All right. And of course, there's a lot that is happening on the dailies. And let's begin with the Daily Nation. And of course, the headline, as you can see, over here, reads "Fresh Face Off." And of course, continues to say, has been revealed that Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya's three-pronged approach to defend itself and deal with renegades as it counters President William Ruto's charm offensive in coalition strongholds. In an exclusive interview, Deputy Secretary General and National Assembly Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi explained Azimio's plans inside and outside the House to maintain unity. And of course, that story is on pages 6 and 7. We'll be looking at it in just a while. And still, there has been sort of like a planned protest or demonstration by, again, Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya's leader, that is Raila Odinga, where the ODM leader announces rallies in support of 4 besieged IEBC commissioners. And again, we'll be looking at that and, of course, delving deeper into that part of the conversation this morning. But of course, we'll also have more Amin's story or special feature on the same. Of course, lived his life through the lenses. But aside from that, let's just take a look at what is happening when it comes to the protests that, again, has been sort of like planned by Azimio leader, that is Raila Odinga, and of course says that the protests or demonstrations will actually happen countrywide. And of course, will be also involving the Kenyans, just to see what they feel about, the same, because he says that the removal of the 4 is part of the plans by the government to skew the 2017 polls. And I'm just going to ask, my guest or panel, again, what exactly do you feel about this whole aspect? There has been also like a bit of a spat between ODM leader Raila Odinga as well as the president on Twitter. Still, when it comes to the Cherera 4, and I'm just going to begin with you, Suleiman. What do you feel about this whole aspect of the ouster? The calls, or conversations around dictatorships, especially when it comes to, the current administration. So what do you feel about this whole aspect?
I think we find ourselves where we were, I think, in May 2017.
All right.
A scenario whereby the present opposition, which was again opposition at the time, had called on Kenyans to come out to even have a way of evicting the IEBC commissioners then. But for me, a number of issues are coming out.
All right.
Let me look, this is not a legal issue per se, it's also political in nature. The movement or whatever is happening in Parliament with respect to summoning or investigating the petitions that were filed against these particular 4 commissioners, those are about 3 commissions, about 3 petitions. But when you look at Article 251, Parliament is doing its job. We are the people who have given Parliament that particular mandate. And now, in the event we want to remove any commissioner with respect to IEBC, the rightful way is not to go and box or fight that particular commissioner, but the law expects us to file a petition, which was done.
Already, the petition was filed.
Yes. And I think this particular drama that is now coming up is with respect to the petitions that are lying before the National Assembly. And again, we are told today is when they're expecting the first commissioners to appear before them. Where does this take us? This takes us to a scenario whereby what is done is in line with Article 251, Understanding Orders 230.
All right.
But away from that, where are we finding ourselves? Where we are finding ourselves is, again, having mistrust in the institutions that we are having, such as Parliament. The other day, we realized the Jailer Committee, a 15-member committee of the House that are representing us as the people, some of them ended up walking out in that particular discussion. That tells you, are we going to have a lot of faith in the outcome of that particular process? Are we going to have a lot of confidence in that? In as much as the legal process is being followed under Article 251,
yeah.
where we are finding ourselves is, this is more of a political question. This is more of a scenario whereby we expect our parliamentarians to be quite impartial in how they're doing this thing. Again, what has it that there are certain petitions that were filed against the chair and the 2 other commissioners whose term is supposed to expire. Have investigations on those particular ones been done? Not at all. So far we have seen only these three petitions being committed by the Speaker to this particular committee. So I think it is more of a political issue, but the other question again Kenyans might ask themselves is what the Right Honourable Raila Odinga doing, is he wrong or is he right? The Right Honourable Raila Odinga is actually, in my view, a champion of democracy. It is what we are enjoying today. He is the opposition. When I find him piling pressure on the government, he is just doing what he has within his right. But then again, what is happening with the members who are maybe supporting him out from the Azimio fold who are in that particular committee? Are they bringing it out during the session? Is there a better way of handling this in a very mature manner?
Some of them walked out.
Yes.
Last week.
Actually, when we saw them walking out, it means whatever process that might come out of this, whatever the results might be out, whatever the result might be out of this, they are going not to associate themselves with this. They are going to say we have not been part and parcel of this again. And again, in my opinion, what has actually finished this particular 4 commissioners is the finding of the Supreme Court. You know, the biggest argument that preceded the announcement of the presidential result was that they were not being involved in the verification exercise. But we know, as part of the findings of the Supreme Court, what the Supreme Court said was that they were all along part and parcel of the verification exercise. And I think that is what is taking us. Yes, that is what is putting us under those particular grounds under Article 251.
Right.
So it's a wait and see issue, but it is not just a legal issue as such, it is a complex political issue. And this kind of rallies that the Right Honourable Raila Odinga is calling for might end up compounding and complexing the whole scenario that we're having at the moment.
Okay, all right. Has one political, legal mistrust here and there. What is your stand on the same?
Well, I think it's a cocktail of all that, yeah. It's political, it's legal, there's a lot of mistrust, of course, perception of witch hunt, which is, you know, quite real for some who believed that the 4 commissioners took a stand that was within the realm of the law. But the entire process is anchored in law. I mean, that is not in doubt.
There's no question,
but the fact that it is going to the floor of Parliament basically tells you that it will take a political angle. And it will not necessarily be whether these commissioners were legally culpable or not. It will be a question of political expediency. And that is where mistrust is coming in, that it's not really so much about what they did as a threat they had to the coalition that won this election, and the feeling that because they pushed them to the brink, they have to be punished. And to a large extent, politicians, either in JLAC or in the National Assembly, will definitely be taking a position that is expedient rather than legal. From where I sit, and you know, I agree with my panelists here that the Supreme Court already pronounced itself. But you see, the Supreme Court was not punitive. There are things they said that Chebukati did that were not right, but they still upheld the victory of the president. There are things they said about the 4 commissioners that they were part and parcel of the process until the last minute. But I also remember that they were very clear that what was this urgency that the chairman had to declare the election when he still had 24 hours. And could that be the reason why these 4 walked out? You know, I mean, there's a lot going on there. And if you ask me today, is it something that Kenyans need to pay attention to? No, you know, we have so many other challenges that our MPs ought to be focusing on than to hound 4 commissioners out of office. But there's something very critical that he has mentioned. Now, what reads political mischief in the whole process is actually the fact that there were petitions against the other 3 commissioners way before, you know, Chairman Wafula Chebukati, Boya Mulu, and Abdi Kulie.
it has never seen the light of the day. It has never been fast-tracked. But the way this has been fast-tracked, like people on steroids, you know, is
there's a lot
is
more
shocking,
questions
you know?
than
And you see, it's just in the interest of every Kenyan that whatever actions those who have power undertake is subjected to a lot of interrogation.
All right.
And therefore, you cannot fault Raila Odinga and his other NASA, you know, partners for putting this in the public domain for purposes of people interrogating it.
And just to know what exactly is happening. All right, how about you take a break? But of course, there's a lot of conversation around, again, ODM leader Raila Odinga is sort of like accusing the president of a revenge, you know, mission against the 4 commissioners who took a different stand. But there's also the question of, are the protests necessary, especially in this, you know, day and age, you know, where things can be done, you know, following the right, you know, channels. And of course, one of them is, you know, the legal aspect as well as taking to the floor of the House. So much still to cover, but we're taking a short break. AM Live, we'll be right back. But again, if you want to be part of the conversation, again, our social media handles at NTV Kenya, both on Facebook and Twitter. And remember to tag me as well. What do you feel about this whole thing? Is it more of a revenge mission, or again, this is something that we should be following up on? We'll be looking at your feedback when we come back from the break. Stay with us. This is AM Live.
This is progressively getting worse unless all of the countries, and not only developed but developing countries, we all unite together to tackle the climate change crisis, which is considered now a triple planetary crisis because it is affecting not only climate change itself, but biodiversity loss and pollution. I, Giovanna Valverde, Ambassador of Costa Rica to Kenya, will be part of the Kusi Ideas Festival 2022. See you then.
The old saying that you don't know what you've got till it's gone might well be pertinent for France fans and Olivier Giroud. A scorer of 51 goals in 115 outings, Giroud has not been France's greatest player, but he has still been one of its most important. Which too many fans might not realise until Giroud, at his last World Cup, is gone.
New Sensodyne Repair and Protect with Deep Repair. It's a huge game changer for me. The science is pretty amazing because it really goes deep inside the tooth and repairs tooth sensitivity. It's going to improve the quality of my life in a big way.
On my dark marks, I've tried everything from A to Z, even vitamin C, but hardly any results. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one, with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using the #1 Lumina 630 from Nivea.
We know your flavor, and that's how you inspire us to always deliver the best quality meals made fresh with locally sourced ingredients. Galitos, bold African flavor.
Get the Galitos Hot Box and a 500 ml Coke Soda at just 699 Kenya shillings.
All right, welcome back. Glad to still with us. This is AM Live. And of course, my name is Winnie Lumba, sitting in for Zainab Ismail, who is away on leave. And our guest for the day has been a media and political communications expert, as well as Suleiman Bashir, lawyer and political analyst, in studio with us. And very quickly, of course, we just were looking at what is happening on the dailies as far as the newspaper review is concerned. Of course, one of the things that we're still talking about, and that is the planned protest, which again, Raila has called, and especially when it comes to the ouster of the famously known as Cherera 4. And of course, the Azimio leader's plans is to draw the immediate condemnation from the president and his deputy who back the commissioner's removal. And of course, he says, and I quote, "I will be speaking more in future, but the first step is blocking these people from sending the commissioners home." And of course, this is in relation to what, Azimio One Kenya leader Raila Odinga said. There's a lot that Kenyans do not know. And of course, he will be speaking soon to just unveil all those things that happened, especially during the elections. So, Suleiman, what do you feel? What do you feel, it is there that, the ODM leader Raila Odinga says there's a lot that happened during the elections that so many Kenyans don't know, and I will be speaking about it. What do you think some of those things are?
Let me start with this. When you look at the law that enables the IEBC, especially the IEBC Act, the first schedule expects, let's say, this time around we are staring at the chairperson of the IEBC vacating office by January, right?
Yes.
So the law anticipates that the process of his replacement, himself and the other two commissioners, should have begun at least 6 months before January. At the moment, we do not see any process again that has kicked off with respect to the replacement of the impending vacancy in the office of the chair and the two other commissioners.
All right.
The reason still I see a lot of politics in this is the intention maybe to send all of them packing once and to replace them once. Is that where we are headed? Because I do not see a scenario whereby the process of replacement of the three whose term we are sure that will be lapsing, that particular process as envisaged under the law has not begun. So is what I ask myself is, are we waiting for Parliament to get rid of these four, a tribunal to be formed, maybe just to rubber stamp what Parliament will find out, to create a vacancy in the offices of these four, then we combine with the other three and have a fresh commission? Maybe that is why, for me, I see a lot of politics in this, because we are not even following the law. By now, we should have kickstarted the process of replacing the chair and the other two. Away from that, when it comes to what the Azimio leader is doing, I find the biggest failures, those who are failing him to be the members of Parliament who are in that particular National Assembly or even the Senate. The Azimio fold. Those are the people who ordinarily fail him. These are the people who are supposed to bring this out. These are the ones who are supposed to champion whatever he's saying. And now he's the one who is forced to call for public barazas, maybe to call on Kenyans to at least see, to come through, to maybe save these four. I do not know how Kenyans are going to do that. Probably, does it mean they'll be camping at anniversary towers? I don't know about that. But all I know is the particular representatives who are both in the jailer committee and in that house are the ones who are failing him. There is a bigger way or a better way of bringing this particular issue out to the people. It is not just about walking out of that particular committee. There is a bigger or a robust way of airing your opinions in a very mature way when you are a member of that particular committee. When you look at, again, the game of numbers, I think Azimio is equally doing well in terms of numbers. When you look at the particular membership of that particular 15-member committee, they have a good number inside that particular committee. Are we again finding ourselves a scenario whereby Parliament is again captured? That is what I think Honorable Rigathi has been saying prior to the election. He was saying that they're going to release Parliament out of captivity, out of the state captivity. Are we again staring at such a scenario? What is forcing the Right Honorable Raila Odinga to now call on the people of Kenya to come out to maybe see how this four can be handled? And again, another thing is that we understand Cherera and the other three had rushed to court. Then the Honorable Mugure Thande is the one who had pushed their matter to interpartisan, I think in December 15 or 16 thereabout. Meaning, they tried to sort for the judiciary's intervention, maybe to stop the process, which they did not succeed at. But for me, what I find is, whatever is ongoing at the moment is within the law. In as much as there's a lot of politics within it, it is within the law. Nobody is doing an illegality. The people, the parliamentarians are simply following the law. Then I think the better way to counter it is use the same members of Parliament to maybe counter that particular process. They're equally entitled to share their opinion, their views in that particular committee. We know JLAC is a very vibrant committee that is supposed to give feedback to the main house within 14 days as anticipated under the standing orders. I think for me, his biggest failures are his foot soldiers in that house.
In that house, all right. Do you hold the same?
Well, to a large extent, in any sort of representative democracy, you wouldn't be sure that the representatives who are given the power, that is the members of Parliament, would represent the cumulative interests of the people who elected them, And I think that's what the Right Honorable Raila is doing. that because we know this is no longer a legal process, it's technically a political process anchored in law. So what you do is very simple. You put pressure on the representatives so that they get to understand the sentiments of the people that they represent. And I think that pressure is necessary. If they've not been doing they've not been pushing the Azimio agenda or protecting the interest of Azimio, then it is incumbent upon the Azimio leadership to find other ways of doing it. But I would also say that, you know, some of these things, in as much as they're enshrined in law, you could actually read some sort of political mischief.
Yeah.
And when you expect any alternative voice to make substantive contribution to the conversations outside there, there isn't much of a big alternative voice than Raila Odinga's voice. So if there is perception that these 4 commissioners are just being hounded out of office for political reasons, even if MPs were to speak their voices hoarse, it would have the same impact that Raila has.
All right. And of course, we'll be continuing with that conversation in just a moment. But right about now, let's take a look at some of the things, other things that has been dominating, you know, the headline. And of course, one of them is the whole GMO, you know, protest. But right now, what we're seeing is CS Kuria actually issued 72 hours notice, and this is to the farmers. Just give me a sec. To do what? To make sure that they release maize. He talked to them when he was in Trans Nzoia and said, listen, we're not doing this because we do not want, you know, your maize. We're doing this because clearly there's a shortage, people are dying, but also give them, you know, an ultimatum, because a lot of farmers and especially leaders from the region saying, listen, we have a lot, and especially right now our farmers are actually in the process of harvesting. So why are we importing, you know, maize from other regions? So 72 hours, which again should have lapsed by now, no? To see the farmers releasing maize. Do you think that is sort of like a fair trade for the CS to say, listen, you only have 72 hours, release the maize, or else we're bringing in the 10 million bags into the country?
Well, it doesn't make sense at all.
Right.
And I think some of these statements should be put within context.
Yeah. I mean, he said one of being in Kenya already sort of like a risk in itself. So adding GMO will not.
Those are red flags, and I want to believe that people around him are working day and night to find a way of helping him communicate in a way that is sensitive. You know, I mean, Moses Kuria is a brilliant fellow, a Lower Kabete graduate, great experience. But I think there's a difference between a representative and a legislator and a government servant who is serving in the executive, because you're serving all Kenyans. You know, Kenyans who probably invested so much in producing their maize. And you know, yesterday I got a text from farmers, you know, because we were talking about this on TV. Now, the maize that they're harvesting right now, they invested 6,500 for a 50 kg bag of fertilizer.
All right.
Now, that price has since gone down because of subsidies. But you see, if you look at their cost of production of what they're investing, the cost of fertilizer was very high. The ones that the ones who have farms that are mechanized had to deal with high cost of fuel, diesel, and you cannot force them to sell their products at a price that does not meet the cost. And now, when you threaten them that you will import, now you are threatening the entire country, because when a farmer has to compete imported maize and sell his maize at a cheaper price, what that does is that it affects the local economy. It means that when you go to the ground, even money that is circulating in this local economy is non-existent, because the farmer who produced is selling at a cheaper price. The ripple effect of the other things that the money would be doing is also affected. And I think this statement that are made by most of these cabinet ministers and cabinet secretaries, we need to look at them from a, you know, a strategic perspective.
All right.
Who are they going to affect? What are going to be the reactions, and what is the implications? Because that statement is a very big statement, and it doesn't speak to what the plan that UDA had when they were campaigning spoke of. Because they talked of subsidizing production. And I can tell you, when import, what you're doing essentially is you're subsidizing the production of people who are producing in other economies. So there ought to be a conversation and a middle ground to find out what was the cost of production and what would be the minimum, you know.
So like come to a compromise?
Yes, so that you come to a compromise. You don't affect farmers and you don't affect the local economy. But I know the government is in a very tricky situation, because farmers need to be paid handsomely.
Right now, yes.
But then the cost also needs to be affordable.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult balance to maintain.
All right. And of course, you know, the question of sufficiency, you know, because again, someone would argue and say, listen, over the last few years, we've seen a number of farmers saying this is no longer profitable to us. We're no longer, you know, doing maize. Let's shift and try to do something else. So the 10 million, you know, bags of what the trade CS, you know, talked about is like, we're going to import this because we do not have sufficient, you know, maize in the country. Do you think this is sort of like the question of people creating a crisis so that we see the costs going higher, or really this is not sufficient, you know, to make sure that we feed the people? People are dying of starvation, you know, and we are known as a country for, you know, just knee-jerk reaction. We're reacting to a crisis that has already been there over time.
You know, for me, I come from one of the 23 affected counties, and I tell you, the statistics show that about 14.5 million Kenyans are staring at starvation. I think that is quite worrisome. That's quite serious, because I come from a place that is between Garissa and Wajir. I can tell you there are people who are really, really affected. So when I hear the government saying that it's going to import on maize, I think for me, the end thing is, are we going to feed these people who are hunger-stricken? If these particular bags of maize are going to save the lives of the people of Kenya, I think so be it. That's quite good to me. It's quite commendable, because the whole essence is let us protect lives, because our own people are dying of hunger. And again, on the other side, over time, agriculture has been the backbone of our economy. But where are we today? I think we have had a drift away from that particular income. It is not so many people who are now hell-bent on maybe relying on agriculture as before, due to very many reasons. I know that the Honorable Moses Kuria has been saying equally that there has been hoarding, and there's a scenario of artificial shortage. And I think that is also quite serious. That's why maybe he's imposing the 72-hour rule, in as much as to majority as it might be quite irrational. But the end thing is about 14.5 million people who are staring at death and starvation. These are the people who we need to feed. In the event we do not have enough grains, in the event we do not have enough bags, I think the government should do what is necessary. What comes first is are the lives of the people. Again, on the flip side, we should not jeopardize the lives of these particular farmers. We should not jeopardize their income. Their source of income should equally be protected in a smart or brilliant way. Equally, they should not be doing hoarding just to wait for the peak season, whereby they should be selling this at the highest price. So I think the government needs to do a balance. The only scenario, the only challenge we have in here is the Honorable Moses Kuria is a bit reckless. He makes some statements in a very sarcastic way, but it ends up being misinterpreted in the ears of Kenyans. And I think that is the problem. He needs to wear the proper shoes of being a CS, not to talk just as reckless as he is doing over time. It is about, in as much as you want to import the 10 million bags, make sure that they're safe for consumption for the people. On the other side, ensure you find a way of buying this particular maize that has been produced locally at a reasonable price that will not mess up with the income.
But then the question is then, so up until, like, when do we expect to see these changes? Because even the president himself, during the campaigns, you know, he said, immediately we get into power, we're going to reduce the cost, you know, of living. The prices for basic commodities would go down, but, you know, the opposite actually happened. And he came out to say, listen, just give us one more year. And then, you know, we will see, you know, a change in all those things. So people are desperate.
I agree with you. When they were campaigning, they were talking about focusing on production. Try to lower the cost of production to maybe make us food secure. You know, when you just walk over to Uganda, our neighbor over there, it is doing so well agriculturally, in as much as their climate might be favoring them. But I agree with you that there is a drift away from the particular objective that they shared with the people. But now we have millions who are staring at death and starvation. I come from one of those particular counties, one of those communities who are highly affected. So I think right now, if we say, let us wait for us to be food secure, we will end up losing lives. So I think we need to do a balance. Let us save lives. Let us also give a lot of attention to our farmers. Let the government, as it has promised, focus on the cost of production. Let it lower that to make it easy for farmers maybe and more people to venture out into the agricultural economy.
Okay, all right. And how soon should we expect this in your view? Because again, the government will say, but see, we reduced the prices of fertilizer just the other day. You know, so like, quote unquote, trying to reduce the cost of production. But then again, that should see the effect maybe sometime next year or 2 years from now.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the fertilizers that this government subsidized and released is probably what is being used in the next,
season, planting season.
Yes. And therefore, you don't expect, that to be a conversation for forcing farmers to sell at a cheaper price.
Yeah.
But, the long term is there has to be a lasting solution. At the moment, they have to sort people who are starving. Right. Food has to be found for people who are starving. But that does not mean that farmers have to be coerced, into selling at a lower price. But there is a mirage that Kenyans also need to be alive to, that if we continue like this, if we continue thinking that the cost of basic commodities will go down, then we are deceiving ourselves. That has never happened in any economy, and it will not happen. Okay. And the reason why we are in this space is because the subsidies were taken, So if the subsidies were taken, it means that the government didn't find that sustainable, and it was definitely gonna, mess around so many things that the government was doing. Yeah. So that investment in production has to be investment in production that is also cushioning farmers from excessive competition from other, products that will be coming into the country. So my take is, if they invest heavily in production, and even the government gets, the idle government land into mechanical production of food crops in this country, the cost of goods will not necessarily come down. All right. But there'll be enough money, because that money that we subsidize for consumption goes to other economies. But if we subsidize on production, it means that there'll be enough money in our local economy. Even if we are buying that maize expensively, we are buying it from our farmers. So it is our farmers who are making that money. Yeah. And when you have a lot of circulation, then it means that every other person will have an opportunity for making money. So much so that even if the prices of goods stay the same or go up, no one will be complaining, because people are making money. Okay. But that is a decision that the government has to make, knowing that it is a long-term decision, but they have to deal with the expectations of their supporters. Absolutely. Who expect the cost of life to either come down or remain the same.
But at the same time, also make sure that we do not lose, lives. People do not lose lives because, of a drought as we await the same. So a bit of a compromise here and there. But let's talk a little bit about politics as well, where we're seeing, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka declaring his presidential bid. And so people are arguing and saying, listen, I mean, we're yet to see how strong the opposition is, but he's already, sort of like planning his way and charting his way as far as 2027 is concerned. What do you feel? Is it too soon to start talking about 2027?
There's a template, yeah? It can never be too soon. Many people are complaining when the president was the deputy president that it was too soon to start.
He started planning too soon.
But I remember there's a statement he once made. I am a man on a mission. There is no retreat, no surrender. Yeah. It served him right. Yeah. So if anyone wants to wait, I think the template is already clear. Okay. You keep waiting. The likes of Mudavadi, Kalonzo, they waited for so long, and they realized there was nowhere they were going. They were not going to form a third force. They only had to join either of the two forces. Yeah. And I think that's the strategy that he's taking. Okay. Start early, galvanize support. It's not music for the president and his deputy and his government, because then it keeps the country in a political conversation. But I would say that given what happened in the last general election and the contribution that Kalonzo Musyoka made to the Azimio One Kenya Lands coalition, you can actually say that he has a very solid base. Okay. And if he starts early and galvanizes support beyond the Kamba region, probably whatever happened to the president will happen to him.
We never know. We might be surprised. All right. But the question is, do you see him seeing this to the end? Because given sort of like his history, one might say, yeah, he would say one thing and then maybe turn, into, something else. So he can't, we don't know. We cannot trust him to see this to the end up until 2027.
No, you see, the reason why I think this could actually be a declaration that propels him to some very serious gravitas compared to what we've seen in the past, him coming in and chickening out, is if you look at the number of votes he brought Raila Odinga, when there wasn't, serious position for him, he was not even the running mate. So you compare how the Kamba Nation voted almost to the last man for Azimio One Kenya Lands, it endeared Kalonzo to some extent to Raila's voting bloc, And just before the elections
but don't forget
were
the
called,
question of loyalism. You know how loyal, you know, Raila's, you know, people can be. So if Kalonzo decides to go alone, especially in 2027, what guarantee does he have that I supported you, you know, all these years, but it's now my time? Because he says, this is what he says, this time round, there is nothing to stop Kalonzo from becoming the president of Kenya. Ruto is the only obstacle, and he knows it.
But you see, you know, he endeared himself, and he doesn't have to be, I mean, Raila doesn't have to convince his loyal base, loyal support base that much, because they saw what Kalonzo did to Raila. And I think that puts him in a very, you know, good state, given that he brought in votes. Compared to other principles, I think he brought in substantive votes from his region. That in itself, I can tell you, even in 2007, when the president supported Raila Odinga, he earned some, you know, support in Raila's stronghold, especially in the Luo Nyanza. There are people who respected him for how he stood with Raila against Kibaki. And the little votes that he got this time around was because there are guys who were like, yeah, this guy was once a very staunch foot soldier. But for Kalonzo, I think it is different. You know, he supported Raila when he didn't have a substantive position, and when Raila needed that support, and Raila was deserted by the other you know, people who've been with him. And probably that in itself, if Raila is not in the race, you know, I think puts Kalonzo way ahead of any other competitor who is looking for Raila's supporters base.
All right, Suleiman.
I think, you know, in our country, we're just done with an election. Then we start the campaign for the next electoral cycle. And I think I will not even be surprised if we find our president beginning his own campaigns for his second term. It happens a lot.
I mean, it started. There was a time he was in church, and he's, you know, one of his supporters was like, yeah, even in 2027, you have his, you know, you have our support. And he said, yes, I am ready. So it's like sadly, you know, the campaigns have already started.
Yes, but now, you know, I'm trying to compare the president when he was the deputy president for those 10 years. So many people say that he was within the campaign trail. He was trying to campaign for his particular 2022 election, which made him the president. When you compare the two, you will find that President Ruto at the time was enjoying state machinery, state resources. Equally, when you compare the financial capacity of both, I think the present president, even when he was the deputy, he had the financial muscle and financial capital to do the necessary campaigns across the country. I really believe the Honorable Kalonzo lacks that. The second thing is, I do not find Kalonzo to be tough on his own without either the support of Raila Odinga or President William Ruto or former President Uhuru Kenyatta. I do not think he can come out boldly to campaign on his own and get a good number of votes. I do not think so. I even believe in the event he let's say, campaigns against the right of Raila Odinga, Raila Odinga might end up getting quite a number of votes in Ukambani than more than Kalonzo. That might even happen. So I think this is someone who, when I look at him, he has started his campaigns too early. The best thing he should do at the moment is play the oversight role, act like a good opposition, cast a lot of checks on the government, show us the ills of this particular government. That is how you can tell Kenyans that I will offer an alternative. And I think he has drifted away from that. We have seen him the other day trying to work with the right honorable Raila Odinga, addressing the media on the surging fuel prices and all that. And I think that is the strategy he should have played. You focus on showing us the mistakes and the negativities of this government, then tell us this is how I'm going to set it right. I think when he now comes out clearly and tells us that I'm going to campaign, I'll be doing this and this and this, going around the country, he's shooting himself on the foot. Right now, we need a good opposition. When you look at the right of Raila Odinga, that is what he's still doing, even today. Look, now, he's actually calling the people of Kenya to come out. Yesterday we saw the president and his deputy addressing or talking about the right of Raila Odinga. He's already making them busy. They have to retort back to what he's doing. They are looking at what he's doing. Is he casting any oversight on us? That is now the kind of place he needs to put himself in. But where he's right now, he either will have to couch behind Raila Odinga or maybe President William Ruto. We don't know. But he's not a man who can stand on his own as such. He has an opportunity at the moment. Let him come out or let him emerge as a good opposition leader. The moment he does that, he will show us that he will be a good alternative to what we have.
He might earn a few votes here and there. Okay, but of course, again, it's a matter of wait and see, because we never know. Politics in the country, I think one thing that we have learned over time is you just never know. It's a matter of wait and see, surprises here and there. But very quickly, because before we go on a break, of course, let's just look very quickly at the Standard. And this is what the headline reads: exams like no other. This is a very defining moment, especially here in the country, where there are almost 3.5 million candidates making, the greatest of recent times. And it will be the first time national tests are administered to grade 6 learners, the pioneer of the CBC. And of course, that story is on pages 6 and 7 of the Standard. 3.4 million. This is the total number of students sitting for the examinations. And of course, there was a bit of a debate of the transition. Because we have, the grade 6, we have the class 8, and of course those conversations around, are we ready in terms of both the teachers being trained, who be teaching them when they transition. There's the whole question about the infrastructure and the whole aspect about double intake. What do you foresee, come next year, January? Hesbon.
Well, I think it's a very difficult situation to be for most parents, especially the ones who have their children in grade 6 sitting for these, grade 6 exams. Yeah. So I'm looking at it, from the point of view of a parent and a teacher, because I'm also a teacher. Yeah. Now, if you look at grade 6, whatever they are doing is going to constitute 40%. I think it's 40% of the total, and then the other grades will be from what they had in grade 4, grade 5, and grade 6. And
grade 6, yeah.
What Kenyans don't understand is that then that goes back to the teachers. Pretty much the same as what we do in universities. You have CAT, coursework, and there's a lot of work there in terms of assessment, keeping those records, and ensuring that those records are accurate to reflect the performance of the children. So to that extent, we don't have a lot of information on how teachers have been prepared to deal with that. There's a lot of conversations around CBC, and people talk about,
it was rushed.
Yeah, it was rushed and all that. But I wouldn't know much of the details, but I'm speaking from a teacher's perspective that would want to understand how are teachers equipped, and are they ready to continue with this? Yeah. And then number two, most parents are very kind of anxious. What does this system look like? What does it mean? Because to a large extent, the content has not changed. They've just infused a competency bit to it. There's a lot of work that brings on board parents and kids, which is good. The only thing is sometimes you look at those and you ask yourself, what is the value add? What is the skill or the knowledge that the kids are getting? And it's hard to tell that. When you speak to teachers, they also don't have a clear idea of what the terminal is. But I would say, these are problems of a new system. Even when 844 came in, I think some of us were toddlers. But we remember how people used to sing around praising Moi for bringing 844.
Now we're facing it out.
Yes, now we have a new administration that has put a task force. They gave their report, and I think those comprehensive changes, once instituted, I think will allay so many fears that people have. But then number two, there is also a concern that most parents are not willing to have their kids as guinea pigs, and there is mass exodus from schools that are moving to CBC to other systems of education, which should be a worry for the government. I've always felt like we are investing so much of our money in private schools. And if we just paid half of the money that we're paying in private schools to government schools, we'll provide better infrastructure in these government schools, and we'll equip teachers even much better. And I think that's even as the government is thinking about the infrastructure, they should actually think of how they would incentivize parents to start taking their kids
to public schools. Okay. All right. Let's take a break. But of course, Suleiman, when we come back, I'll give you, the chance to also respond to the same. The whole question about, so who's going to take care of these learners? What will the transition be like, given that it's a double intake? It's a lot. But of course, we're taking a break. When we come back, there's still a lot to cover as far as the dailies, but also the conversation as far as quote-unquote Cherera 4. And is this more of a revenge mission, or this is, a legal process that should be followed, and what is the outcome of the same? There's a question of a demonstration is necessary, especially this day and age. There's a lot to cover, so stay with us. This is AM Live. We'll be looking at your feedback when we come back from the break. Stay with us. See you shortly.
New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Advanced Care. With 5 oils and 5 vitamins. 48-hour nourishment. Helps reduce appearance of stretch marks in just 2 weeks. New Nivea Radiant and Beauty Advanced Care. For your shade of beautiful.
Want to learn more on investing? Well, we have you covered. Join us on the 30th November 2022 from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Sarova Panafric, Nairobi, for an investor education conference under the theme Saving and Investing Right. Come, let's have a discourse and widen your palette on saving and investing. Register and partner with us for an opportunity to present your investment ideas, tools, products, and services to the attending patrons. For more information, contact Kate on 0721 758 909 or Boniface on 0724 596 333 or email bijalango@ke.nationmedia.com.
The old saying that you don't know what you've got till it's gone might well be pertinent for France fans and Olivier Giroud. A scorer of 51 goals in 115 outings, Giroud has not been France's greatest player, but he has still been one of its most important. Which too many fans might not realise until Giroud, at his last World Cup, is gone.
May I ask you something, and then we won't talk about this again? Were you able to find my dad?
Nicole. Do you realize that your daughter has lived 9 years of her life without ever knowing her father simply because you thought it didn't matter to him?
Look, I didn't ask for your opinion, Mickey. I know that I did something wrong, and you know how much this hurts me. I hold the pan, you buffoon. And I'm going to make sure that you wear it as a hat for being such a crafty liar.
It had to be you.
Get EasyFX today, a secure and convenient platform that allows you to do your Forex requirements in real time. Buy and sell Forex at the touch of a button. Sign up for EasyFX today.
What kind of initiatives has the Ministry of Education put in place or is working on to ensure that EdTech solutions for persons with visual impairments are widely available in Kenya?
The government of Kenya has done a lot in terms of policy for making access to inclusive schools possible.
Personally enjoyed some of the platform on for example, Ubongo, which was an online platform.
We have seen more than 21,000 schools receiving the tablets and devices. We have seen delivery of over 200 embossers.
Join us as we ask these and more questions this Monday at 4:30 p.m. East African Time on NTV.
We know your flavor, And that's how you inspire us to always deliver the best quality meals made fresh with locally sourced ingredients. Galitos. Bold African flavor.
Get the Galitos Hot Box and a 500 ml Coke soda at just 699 Kenya shillings.
All right, welcome back. Of course, the conversation still continues during the break. This is AM Live, and of course, we're tackling, you know, what has been happening over the weekend and what the week looks like, even as we head into a new week. We're almost, you know, a few days shy, you know, before we actually welcome the month of December and we complete the year 2022. A lot has been happening, and of course, we're just, you know, looking at them. And of course, one of the things that has brought a lot, you know, of feedback, especially when we're talking about, you know, looking at what has been happening in the dailies, is the whole question about GMO and of course, the importing of maize, 10 million bags to be exact. And a lot of people are saying on Facebook, for example, Victor, this is Victor Kiprotich Ruto, who says effect of voting in, anyway, okay, all right, that is what the comment I was looking for. Someone says, this is Lucy, she says, farmers, don't do it. I am tired of supporting this government. Atam Kitoa, but not a letter GMO. Everything with this government is a mess, all right? And then someone said, but Moses Kuria has never been sensitive. Trust me, he will be President Ruto's nightmare. Okay. And then another one says, kwani lazima tukule ugali? Si hata mchele na viazi bado ni chakula. We will eat that. Okay, so keep your feedback coming. We'll be sampling them as we continue with the conversation. But right about now, let's just switch, you know, focus to the Cherera 4. And of course, like we said when we started the conversation, Azimio la Umoja, one Kenya leader, that is Raila Odinga, he's talking about the whole question about protests and, you know, countrywide, all right, starting from Kamkunji, and of course we'll go all the way to Nakuru and Mombasa. And the question is it necessary, especially right now in this day and age? Do we really have to go back to the streets protesting all those things? All right, and Suleiman, I'm going to give you a chance first of all to talk about the schools double intake. Are we ready? And then we'll come back and talk about, you know, the whole protest. Is this necessary, especially in 2022?
May I firstly take this opportunity to wish these over 3 million students all the best in the exams. I have a younger sister. My younger sister is sitting for the KCSE examination. All right. So it's an opportunity for all these young minds to sit for these exams, and we have a lot of faith in them that they can do it. On the other part, this is a very interesting time whereby we're having grade 6 examinations, class 8 examination, then form 4 examination. With respect to this, I think the bigger excitement lies around the grade 6 learners. All right. This is about, again, the CBC. We have had a task force going around the country collecting opinions and views of the people. But for the last, I think, 1 year, we have had more people castigating or ridiculing this particular program than finding a way of praising it. All right. When I look at the CBC, you know, I am moved by scenarios whereby countries like Pakistan regret to death for not incorporating into their system such a system like the CBC. All right. That tells you, is it a good thing for us? Yes, it is, if it is done in the rightful manner. All right. When we talk about it being rushed, it is with us. The process has started. We have the first batch of learners sitting for examination. Is it right to abolish it? No. Can we find a way of bettering what we have at the moment? Okay. The other thing is, when you go back home and try to assess that particular learner in grade 1 and 2, that learner today has a better content than the learner who was in class 1, 2 previously. At the moment, they have, I think, content-wise, the mode of learning is quite, we can appreciate it. We see a lot of good in it. But there are a lot of infrastructural challenges that comes with this particular program. There's a way it is expected. There is a training that we expect the teachers to be having. So I think the best thing to do is, how can we better what we have at the moment? It is no doubt a good system for us. It is no doubt a good system for our learners. It is in the best interest of our learners. The other thing is, even as the learners today embark on the process of sitting for these national examinations, there's a lot of burden on the Cabinet Secretary for Education at the moment. Right. His predecessor has instilled a lot of integrity in our exams. I think he has tried. Where we have come from and where he has taken us, there has been a lot of cabin when it comes to cheating in national examinations. Right. So I think there's a lot of burden on this particular CS to also show us that we better what we have, integrity-wise. Let him give us quality examination, examination that is not leaked, an exam that is well marked, an exam that proves or shows the ability of our learners. I think that is how that is what we are looking at. So, in all sense, it's an opportunity for both grade 6, class 8 and form 4 to show that they are transitioning to the next phase of their lives. It is something that they can easily do. We have a lot of faith in our learners and our system, we hope. In line with I hope to see a lot of good recommendations in what the task force has done, is to give us that in 2023, because our learners are going to take a break, in 2023 we are going to have a system that has been improved, a system with better recommendations. That is now what we are looking at. For me, it is not about castigating, it's not about ridiculing this program. Let us see the good in it. Let us find out how we can better what we have. I understand. Let me even give you an example. In Habaswein, for example, there's a school that barely has a teacher in class 8. Actually, it has one teacher that will be serving in, I think, in more than 3 to 4 subjects. That is the situation we are in. So it's not about just bringing out the problems. It is about giving the opportunity to the state to see how this can be bettered. So I think we call on the government to intervene, see how we can improve in our learning.
But isn't that like a little too late in this sense that, again, January is not too far from here, right? From now, the learners are already, they're starting the examinations now, and they need to transition come next year, January. I mean, the window is sort of like, too short for the government to streamline this and make sure that this works, and especially when it comes to the double intake.
But the other say that we have had is that the learner who is now in grade 6 will be within the same school even as it transitions to the other phase. Meaning, we do not look at a scenario whereby the kid from Moi Avenue Primary will be living there to another school. That is now, I think, how they are trying to manage. But I'm saying, every system that starts will start with its own challenges.
True.
I tell you this, even if we suspend this particular program for 2 years, and let's say we set a target to maybe embark on a good CBC program in 2025, these particular challenges will still be with us. So it's about, let us start, let us see our weaknesses, let us improve it even whilst in it. So it's a process that already started. Our learners are sitting for the grade 6 exam, meaning we have started from somewhere. We are somewhere at the moment. So let us set a target as to where we're heading to. Let us not think of even abolishing this program. I tell you, go examine or assess a grade 2 student today. That particular kid who is in a good school, with the kind of learning system that we expect, or the one that is being filled with today, what they are learning is way better than what you have had before. So I think, let us not be countries like regret not incorporating such a system. We have an opportunity at the moment. Let us seize it and improve on what we have.
And see if it can work. All right, then, let's go back to the Cherera 4. They're supposed to appear before, the tribunal today. And the question is, will they show up or not? Because, there has been conversations about, they've been told not to. So, like waiting to see?
You see, if a commissioner is invited to appear before the committee.
I mean, before the committee, yes.
Before the jailer committee. It's said to be, it's more of a quasi-judicial body. They are supposed to hear you. You can be cross-examined on what you say by the petitioner's lawyers. Equally, actually what happened is that these particular commissioners, there is an opportunity that came in their hands which they forfeited. What happened is, you remember they sent their lawyers who appeared before the committee. Those particular lawyers were supposed to cross-examine the petitioners at the time. Meaning, if today Cherera or any other commissioner appears before the committee, any lawyer representing the 3 or so commissioners, the 3 or so petitioners, will be given an opportunity to cross-examine what the commissioner says before the jailer committee. It tells you, when you look at how the law has been framed, it gives us a scenario where you're supposed to appear before the jailer committee, because jailer is about our members. We are the ones who have elected them. We have given them that particular power to exercise on our behalf. So it is expected in a good democracy. It's supposed to hear both sides and give good recommendations, maybe which might be adopted at plenary. Now, what happens in the event they do not appear before the House? That will end up to their disadvantage, meaning an opportunity will have been given to them. Meaning the committee will have only heard the petitioners without hearing the jailer committee. It is what happens in court. If I sue you in court and the court hears me and I serve you with my papers and you're given a date to appear in court, in the event you fail to come before court, a judgment in default will be entered, meaning you have slept on your right. I think these commissioners should do the honorable thing.
All right.
What these petitioners have done is within the constitutional right. They have petitioned the House. This is the House. In as much as we may talk about an institution that we may be having a lot of mistrust with it or in it, it is something that is anchored in law. Nobody is doing an illegality. Yeah. So I think what to expect is for these particular commissioners to appear before the committee, share their opinion. If there are members of parliament who are in support of these commissioners, then they will have an opportunity or to maybe support them when it comes to the kind of recommendations that this particular committee will be doing. When it comes to plenary, members will also have an opportunity to debate the report by JLAC. In all sense, what I'm saying is, another issue that is also disturbing me is, we are looking at 3 who are exiting, 4 are remaining. Now, this particular Cherera 4 who have been labeled as such, we have a side of the political divide that is in support of these 4. In the event these 4 are not removed, when you look at their term in office, they might end up handling the next election.
All right.
Does it mean that those who are uncomfortable with these 4 will have a problem with how the subsequent election will be held? So I think we are finding ourselves in a complex scenario in both sides. Right. When you look at those who are voting for the removal of these 4, we're also staring at the removal of at the expiry of their term of the other 3. Are we staring at a scenario whereby we are at a politicized process whereby when it comes to the replacement of the next 3, because we expect a selection panel to be constituted, does it mean what this portends is that a huge debate as to who is going to assume the office of the chair and the other 2 commissioners? In the event we remove these 4, are we standing at a scenario of having 7 fresh member commission? So for me, I see a lot of problems with it. Even if we retain these 4, a side of the political divide will say, look, the right Honorable Raila Odinga has been supporting these 4. Does it mean that there is something with this particular 4? So I think it is a huge debate that will not end today. It will be with us up until the next election for as long as we retain either these 4 or any other 3.
A fresh set of commissioners. Husband, there's a question of what is the worst case scenario if they don't show up today to the committee, because the president is supposed to form the tribunal, all those things. But what is the worst case scenario that they don't show up today? Because we know our leaders to not show up when they're summoned, right? And they will not be the first ones if they do not show up. But what is the worst case scenario if they completely do not show up?
Well, I don't think it's the worst case scenario, but what are some of the likely consequences? And Wakili has touched on one. If they don't show up, this is more of a quasi-judicial process. It means that they've denied themselves the right of reply to explain themselves. I know if you're accused of anything, I think it's just a judicial process that absolves you from any wrongdoing. Because after a judicial process, then no one can hold you culpable if a court of law or a quasi-judicial setup has absolved you. And, committees in parliament have powers equivalent to a high court. So they actually have that judicial element to it. So that is one of the things. That is one of the consequences, that they will deny themselves that opportunity to give their sides of the story. But I think the bigger consequence, if they don't show up, would be the political dimension of the entire process will now become the main dimension.
All right.
As we said, this is actually a political process that is anchored within a legal framework. So if they don't show up, chances are they're taking cue from the political conversations that are happening. And it is interesting that there are rallies that have been
sort of like scheduled,
lined up. So we start with Kamkunji, Nairobi, then we go all the way to Mombasa, Nakuru, Kisumu, and then Kakamega. If they don't show up, I think there'll be a lot of traction on these rallies, and a lot of people will come out. That is if they don't show up. Because the perception would be that they're being subjected to a process that is already predetermined. And if you look at the conversations, even the kind of questions that we've seen in the public domain, there are questions that are entreated in such a way that you realize that someone is not asked so that they give their opinion, but the person is asked so that it is seen that they were asked a question to give their opinion. So there's a lot of intrigue here in terms of what are the interests that we are looking at. And what complicates this is, if they remain in office, after the other 3 leave, just like Wakili said, then we'll also be in another conundrum. We'll be asking ourselves,
do we trust them
if we
to
recruit
deliver
the other
credible?
3, we still have a commission that is sort of divided. And I think because it is a political process, at the end of the day, you may want to ask yourself, is there a way they can deal with it politically without contravening the law? So that we seamlessly have a situation where the four are not victimized for the position that they took. Because personally, I believe that they had a right to take that position. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court made its pronouncement and said part of what they were given, a task that they were not even supposed to be given, some manual task here and there, you know. So there were a lot of things. And for once, we had a Supreme Court, a court of law, that instead of punishing wrongdoing, was giving guidelines on how things are supposed to be done. You see, so yeah, there's a lot in terms. There's a lot in terms of what the Supreme Court did that we may just want to run away from whatever happened in the last general election and find a better way to soldier forward. But it will also be interesting to listen to what Raila Odinga says about the truths behind what happened. You know, because a lot of Kenyans are still asking themselves, what exactly happened? You know,
We've never had
and why
answers.
is it that in the declaration of the win of the presidential election, we had chaos at Bomas? We had a fight. You know, it is not
the
something.
long wait and then ended up in chaos that almost So there's a lot of questions.
And you ask yourself, what exactly was happening behind the scene? We've seen affidavits here and there. Even the Supreme Court pronounced itself that some of those affidavits were based on falsehood. So we want to understand what exactly is the truth. But we would imagine that whatever happens, we go into the next cycle of election with a commission that Kenyans have 100%
trust in the same. But what do you think, you know, the revelations that ODM leader Raila Odinga sort of like will reveal to the Kenyans? What impact do you think that will have, and especially when it comes to the fate of, you know, the Cherera Four?
You see, what I want to say firstly is that this particular conversation that has started at the moment about the four commissioners has started at the right time. Many a times we have found ourselves questioning the integrity of certain commissioners when we have a few months to the next election. I think for me it is it's a conversation that has started at the right time, because we are not staring at an election in the next few months.
In the next 2 months.
Yes, I think once we go through all these dramas, we might find a way around this, whereby we might end up having a good commission that will oversee the next election. But let me just take you back. Every commission that has handled a general election has been faced with what this particular commission is facing at the moment. All commissioners, when you look at the previous chairs and the previous commissioners, regardless of what kind of position they took in the election, once they're done with that election, such a process is always followed, a dramatical process. Another issue that I'm observing at the moment is, and I've said this, the biggest honors or the biggest blame is on these parliamentarians. They are not representing, in the event they're even supporting these particular four commissions for whatever reasons, that is what they should be saying on the floor of the House. Let me give you another example. When you look at Article 251, it talks about any Kenyan can initiate the process of removing any holder of an independent office or a commission. Does it mean, in the event we protect this through a political process, or politically, or through applying some political dramas or barazas, tomorrow, if I petition Parliament for the removal of, let's say, the chair of the Parliamentary Service Commission or Ombudsman, does it mean, again, we would end up finding ourselves a political supremo calling on the people maybe to avert the looming removal of somebody? I think, equally, it is quite important to respect the law. If we want to counter the process of removing four commissioners, let us not initiate demonstrations or such a thing. The law anticipates us to follow a certain process. That process has started. There is a reason as to why we gave ourselves Article 251. Why did we do that? In the event we want to be addressing the removal of commissioners through barazas, why don't you amend Article 251? There is a reason as to why we have it there. So I think it's quite, for me, I do not propagate, or I'm not a champion of what the Right Honourable Raila Odinga called for. You know, when you call for conversations around Kamukunji, it is more or less what you have seen in May 2017. Because you will address the people, you want to see the excitement of the people, you want to know how, where they tilt in a way. Then the other day, in 24 hours, you might call on them to maybe camp around anniversary. I think that's quite immature. You see, every 5 years, we should be somewhere. Every 5 years, we should be somewhere. Every election, it should not be about one way of removing these commissioners. It should not be about that. It should be about applying a democratic way or appreciating the law as to how we are going to remove them. Even if they are removed, or even if they appear before the commission, before the committee today, What will Cherera will have an opportunity to even tell the people of Kenya what she feels.
Yes.
The other 3 commissioners will equally have an opportunity. That is what we are looking at. It should be something that is supposed to be done in the full glare of the media. Let her appear before the committee.
And tell us
let us yeah, so many of us are already in the dark. We want to know the realities behind those particular scenes. Because we understand they have even filed affidavits in court to even protest the outcome of that particular presidential result. For me, I'm not even surprised, but this conversation was supposed to come, and I think it has come early, and that will give us an opportunity to have a well-established commission by the time we get to 2027.
Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead.
Just what, you know, the Kenyan Constitution has a very expansive Bill of Rights, yeah. So the right to assemble, the right to picket, I mean, it's provided in the Constitution. Just like the right to follow the due process to remove any commissioner is in the Constitution.
Yes.
Number 2, Article 1 of the Constitution is also very clear that sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya. They can exercise it directly or through representatives, including institutions such as Parliament. So if there is perception that these 4 commissioners you know, are being persecuted for the right things that they did during the election, you cannot deny any Kenyan and say that whatever they are doing is immature or mature. I think whatever they decide to do, they have a right. If they want to assemble at Kamukunji, they want to assemble in Mombasa, Kisumu, they have a right. And the right to life is more important. So no one should die there. And it is not their work to protect life. It is their work to exercise their right to demonstrate, and the work of the government to ensure. But
we all know what usually happens during
we all know what usually happens. And you see, even in the last
never
election,
within reason.
Even after the last election, there were allegations that the people who were being, the people who were shot. And by the way, reports on extrajudicial killings are very clear. And even the government back then, the Interior Cabinet Secretary, was very clear that no demonstrator was killed. That the people who were killed were guys who were looting. That is a function of the government, to ensure that the entire process is protected. No life is lost, no property is lost. And even if property is lost, the right to life is non-derogable. You don't kill because of property. You take people through a judicial process. But lastly, let me say this. You know, we might talk about a legal process for as long as we want, but this is essentially a political process. We might say that any Kenyan has a right to petition Parliament, but these are not Kenyans who went to petition Parliament. We know these guys. We know Dennis Tumbi. We know Geoffrey Langat. We know Steve Jerry Wood. These are people who are deeply entrenched in the UDA structures. So they are not Kenyans. So from the beginning, they are Kenyans who have other definitions. From the beginning, these are Kenyans who already have a position. So you can actually take it to the bank that these are people who have a position, and their position is very clear.
So you think they have this sort of like vested interest?
Of course. And it is written all over.
So, but they're Kenyans. I mean, whether they have positions, vested interests, they're Kenyans.
They are Kenyans who can be defined.
Yes.
And if you define them, you realize that this is not your normal Mama Mboga, Mtia Boda Boda. This is a
Would
Kenyan,
it have made a difference?
This is a Kenyan who does not even belong to a political party. But is deeply entrenched in the activities of that political party.
All right.
Yeah.
Would it have made a difference if it was Mama Mboga, for example, or Kamawanyama, you know, for example, who did?
Because our politicians behave like Aneke in Chinua Achebe. Things fall apart. Since men have learned to shoot without missing, birds have also learned to fly without patching. They would find a way. So it is easy to read in between the line that this is a political process. And when it is a political process, it will definitely be a political contest.
True.
And in a political contest, you don't deny people their rights. They can exercise that right the way they want.
The way they want.
What we know as Kenyans, all of us, irrespective of whether you support Azimio, you support UDA or Kenya Kwanza, we want a peaceful country. We want a government that is doing what it promised, and we want an alternative voice that is ensuring that the same government is delivering on its mandate and is not doing anything that is not in the interest of the public. But we also have a right to call opposition or any alternative voice, you know, to order that we need a peaceful country. If you exercise your right of demonstration, can you exercise within the realms of protecting life and property.
Okay, and we sure hope to see that day come where we're protesting, but within reason, so that we don't see any life lost. So as we bring this then to a close, let me just allow me to read two tweets that were made last week. That is one for President and the other one for ODM leader Raila Odinga. So the President said, the lords of impunity who destroyed oversight institutions using the handshake fraud should allow Parliament to hold rogue officials who put the nation in danger by subverting the democratic will of the people to be held to account. The new order is rule of law, not wishes of big men. Then ODM leader Raila Odinga replied and said, this is due process. There is due process and natural justice. Things aren't just done at the whims of the executive. The rule of law must prevail and not your jungle laws that you want to institute so as to subjugate Kenyans to a conveyor belt system of elections come 2027. We shall not relent. What do you make of this, of these two statements as we bring this conversation to a close? I'm going to start with you.
I think for me, as I've said, the process is good. The process is quite good. It is in line with our constitution. There's a reason as to why we have the jailer committee and Article 230 of the standing orders. There's a reason as to why that particular petition has been committed to the committee. There's a right that has been exercised by those three petitioners. It is within their right. They did so. I think the biggest onus is now on the jailer committee members to give us a good process. Let that particular process be quite transparent. And as much as it's about, there are more of politicians who are inclined to certain political parties, let them show us that we are not talking about the same parliament that we have had in both the 10th and the 11th and the 12th houses. It is about, let them show us that this is now a fresh breed of minds who are able to steer the operations of the committee in a very reasonable manner. I'm looking forward to a scenario whereby these particular commissioners will appear before the committee. They will give us their side of the story. We will end up judging what comes out of it by ourselves. The same report is what will be considered by the House at plenary. As I said, these particular four have even tried to rush to court. They tried to stop this process. Those orders were not given by the court. Now, the only other option, you know, we are a country that, in as much as there are a lot of politics around it, our constitution, I normally say it's about now 12 years down the line. There is more to borrow as to how we steer things around ourselves this time round. 5 years ago should be different from how we do things this time round.
Right now,
It should not be about causing demonstrations in front of your nation media all the way to anniversary towers, destroying cars, killing someone, or realizing a loss of 1 or 2 Kenyans. That is not where we want to find ourselves in at the moment. And let me tell you, when you look at most political demonstrations, they end up being quite rough. Most political demonstrations that are organized by these particular leaders. I think the smart way of handling this is the fair process is appear before the committee, share your opinion. Be cross-examined if that will happen. And share your side of the story. The people of Kenya have tallies. They are following around the country. There are members who are supporting, who might be in defense or in support of this particular 4 commissioners. Let them also share their opinion on that particular committee. Let this report get to the House at plenary. Because the reason what I'm saying so is, we are the ones who have given ourselves the breed of leaders who we have in that house. We are the ones who have given them these powers. These are not powers that they have gotten out of the street, no. We gave them these powers. We gave them the opportunity to sit in that particular house. I think that is now in proper setting, in a democracy. That is where we need to get to. I think when we talk about Raila Odinga calling on the people to come out, is it still about finding ourselves sliding back to 5 years? Let us find a maturer way of handling things. In the event she thinks her right to fair administrative action has been breached or contravened, she can still bring that to court. There are so many ways of going around this in a very legal, democratic manner. It should not be about causing dramas and realizing loss of lives here and there and destroying property.
Thank you very much, Suleiman. Hezbon, literally 30 seconds.
Well, I think I agree with my colleague here. You know, Kenya as a country, you know, coming out of the 2022 general election, we've demonstrated a lot of maturity and we've seen strides made in our democracy. That demonstration that people expected, you know, never happened. We didn't see the winners behave in a way that was untoward. We didn't see the losers behave in a way that was chaotic. And because this is essentially a political process, we expect that in as much as they have these tough talks, ultimatums here and there, altercations between the president and the former prime minister. I think those are given in any context that people would want to size, you know, their opponents.
All right.
But it is incumbent upon them to show political leadership, to find a way out of this that will not lead to any loss of property, a loss of life, and certainly will not infringe on anyone's right, including those 4 commissioners.
Absolutely. All right. Will they show or not? That is a matter of wait and see. And of course, we'll wait to see what's going to happen, you know, to the end this week. But gentlemen, thank you very much for coming by today. Hesbon Wheeler, media and political communications expert, as well as Suleiman Bashir, lawyer and political analyst. Thank you very much, really, for coming by today. Much, much appreciate your time. But do not go too far, because Your World is coming up next. And of course, it's all about STEM subjects, because like we all know, it's usually, you know, STEM usually associated with, you know, the males. But then again, we see, you know, a bit of, you know, disproportion when it comes to the females. So then how do we encourage more women and girls to join in the STEM? Well, that conversation is coming up on Your World. Stay with us. We'll see you shortly. But for now, AM Live, we, you know, hold the conversation right here. And of course, Olive Varus will be here tomorrow morning to continue with the same. But for now, see you shortly on Your World.